Hello, 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 good people, and welcome to everyone's favorite podcast, Not Right, Not Wrong, Making Opinions Cool Again. This is Tamika. I'm here with the usual suspects. Just Ja. Just Ja is in the spot. How are you, my friends?
Well, sister, everything is everything. Maintaining above sea level. You dig?
You dig. You dig. Everything is everything. Lauren Hill, above sea level.
Yes.
Good to see you, brother.
Likewise, likewise. Always lovely to see your face.
And we, of course, have Dark Mark C1 in the spot. How are you, my friends? How's everything?
Queen D1, I am truly blessed. Grateful to be here at this moment. Grateful we are in assembly again to do this podcast thing and just keep it going, man. I appreciate y'all guys. Let's keep doing it.
Good to see you. Good to hear you. I appreciate y'all too. I appreciate y'all too. We're joined together for a very special episode because this is the finale of season 3. This is our final ep of season 3. How y'all feeling about that?
Great stuff. That means we did 2 other seasons and we still here.
And we still together.
Still rocking, man. Still content, still stuff we haven't even thought of to speak on. Yeah, this is great, man.
Yeah. And every season we're growing, getting better and better, especially with the aesthetics, the aesthetics of the content, production wise. And next season rather. Next season is gonna be even more better, I'm sure. Because every year, every season we grow. And I notice it.
Absolutely. We do grow. While we're on hiatus, Ja, you're probably going to be celebrating your birthday. So let me go ahead and wish you happy pre-birthday now as we have entered your season.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Appreciate you.
You are welcome. And I think C1 and we have to take you out for some Henny.
That's a fact.
Yes. Devirginization.
Throwing them back.
Maybe, just maybe you can earn your black card, John. Just maybe
once
we throw some Henny down your throat.
Yeah, man. I know.
Don't worry about driving, John. I'm gonna come get you, man.
Appreciate you.
You ain't gonna be able to drive. I gotta make sure you get back home one piece.
Of course.
There we go. See how we take care of you? Look at us. We're so mature.
That's why I love y'all, man. That's why y'all my comrades. You dig? See?
So, for the listeners already know the format. They already know whoever starts talking, it's a topic that, you've chosen. So today is a topic that I've chosen. I don't know, guys. This one feels a little sensitive to me. So I'm gonna frame it as best I can before we even get into it. That's yes, frame it. So today I want to have a discussion, a transgender discussion, right? I want to acknowledge that this is a super sensitive topic. I also want to acknowledge that none of us identify as transgender. None of the co-hosts identify as transgender. So we're talking from our perspective through our own personal lens, which is not a transgender lens. Just that fact itself will likely lend us to say some things that are not completely appropriate or not as well informed as about the transgender experience as if we were part of the transgender experience. So we're still going to speak our truth, and we're going to be honest and transparent and authentic and all of the things. but we know that this is not our experience. We're outsiders to the experience. I also wrote some notes down because I wanted to make sure I put some disclaimers and some information. So I'm going to be looking at some of my notes. I think the other thing that the approach that I'd like to set and frame for this space, at least partially, is, since we're not of the transgender community, is a human rights perspective, right? A lot of what seems to be coming up around discussion of transgender rights are relatable because they're part of human rights, right? I think that that the transgender community, there's some experiences that we can all relate to that the transgender community has experienced. Feeling othered, feeling marginalized, feeling minimized, feeling attacked, being on the receiving end of all kinds of physical and verbal threats, leading up to and including death, right? So we're not taking this lightly at all. With that being said, we are who we are. And so there might be some moments of levity. There might be some laughter that comes up in the space. It's not intended to minimize anyone's experience at all. It is just about being able, I think all three of the co-hosts have lived a life of being able to unpack difficult experiences using humor as part of the process. So that may happen today. I don't know. We have found levity in a lot of things. So there's that. There is that. Let's see, what else I want to say. I think I also want to put some vocabulary into the space that we might need as we move forward, because this conversation I'm anticipating is probably going to be a generational, an intergenerational conversation, as well as an intergender, like between genders, between generations. Who knows, race is probably going to come up into the space as well. So let's try and get a little bit of language, because I know from my generational experience, some of the transgender language is new to me, right? A lot of it is, there's a lot of, acronyms and language that I'm just learning. So first, I want to put on the table trans or transgender, right? So that references a gender identity that doesn't correlate with the sex that the person registered at birth, right? So they were born under one sex, but they identify as a different sex. Then we have the term cis or cisgender, and that means that your gender identity aligns with the sex that you were assigned at birth. Okay, so we have trans, transgender, cis, and cisgender. Then we have queer, and queer is a bit of a catch-all term that basically references a gender identity that's outside of the established norms, right? The binary of male and female. Anything outside of that kind of established binary can kind of be caught up into this catch-all of queer. Then we have acronyms AFAB and AMAB, assigned female at birth, assigned male at birth. I don't know if those will come up at all, but just in case. Then we have, this gets a little bit complicated for me, because then we have gender. And gender is sometimes used to reference sex, male or female, and sometimes it's used to reference gender roles, the expression of sex, right? A sociological definition of gender is usually about gender roles. But I think in common, kind of conversation, we might use gender and sex interchangeably. And I actually think we might use gender more often than sex, because I think we might use sex to reference the act of intercourse or any sort of, sexual interactions.
Mm-hmm.
So we have sex and we have gender roles, and then we have gender identity, right? And gender identity is how your sex manifests in your cultural experience.
Wow.
All right.
Okay. So we got that basis, which is not even all of the language, right? But
I have no doubt.
Then I just also want to highlight the generations. And I always forget these, so I had to write them down, right? So from 1901, wait, is this right? I'm already messing up. From 1901 to 1927, we have the generation labeled the greatest generation.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
This is the generation that is, I guess the big thing that happened during this generation was the Great Depression, right? Then after that, we have what's called the silent generation. I've never heard of these two names for generations ever.
Ever.
The silent.
You've heard of the silent generation?
Yeah. That's our grandparents' generation. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So depending on how old your grandparents are. For me, this generation is kind of like my aunties or great aunts, great uncles.
Okay.
The greatest generation is actually my grandmother's generation. Like my grandmother falls into that generation. Okay. The silent generation, if they're still living, they're between 59 and 77 years of age. So they were born between 1928 and 1945. The greatest generation, if they're still alive, they're between the ages of 96 or 98 and 122. Yeah. Then we have the baby boomers. Most of us know the baby boomers, right? For most of us, those are where our parents fall. Our parents might be baby boomer or silent generation, perhaps.
Yeah.
Baby boomer is 1946 to 1964. Wait, yes, 1946 to 1964, which puts them between 59 to 77 years of age. Then we have Generation X. Yes, boop, boop, boop. Big up, Generation X. Yes, between, huh?
I say, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Reporting for duty. Here we are.
Yes, yes.
From 1965 to 1980. Then we have millennials, who are from 1981 to 1996. So millennials are actually between the ages of 27 and 42. Which I think for me, I call anybody younger than me a millennial. So I have to fix it. Then we have Gen Zers, who are between 1996 and 2012. They're between the ages of 11 and 26. And the final generation, some of whom have not been born yet, they were born between 2013 and 2025. Okay. Why am I saying all of this? I'm saying all of this because from the place that I sit, transgender is mostly new for me. From my experience, I think I understood lesbian and gay, but transgender is not something that was in my realm of awareness. The most awareness that I had was of cross-dressers at that period of time. That's the language we had, cross-dressers. But I don't think I understood that there were people who were living in bodies that did not feel like it was representative of them. I think I understood cross-dressing as, maybe something people were doing for fun. Maybe for what, Mark?
Kinks, like it may be your kinks, what you do in your bedroom is your business type of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I'm gonna go straight to you, Mark. What is your understanding of transgender? When did you even begin to understand what it is?
Honestly, I still don't understand it. And and this is to not make light of people's struggles, since you mentioned that, or whatever it is they may be going through that may feel discriminatory, but I honestly don't understand it. So a lot of what you just prefaced this with and starting with, this is real education for me, because I don't want to disrespect anybody or anyone to feel like I am doing so if it's just my opinion. But unfortunately, when you think against the grain, people may tend to think, again, cancel culture, because you're supposed to think like everyone else. But if it's truly my intent and in my heart to not offend and just be educated, then I don't understand how that's the case. I still don't understand it. So more so for the fact, let's just say for conversation's sake, again, we'll go back to what you were born as. I don't like to make things complicated. I don't like to figure out too many things. I like it to just be simple. So if you were born a male, then you're a male. If you're born a female, then you were born a female. Right now, it would appear as if it's just that easy to say that I am not. And we have to be in acceptance of that. Because if you're not, you're going against the grain, you violating their rights. Okay, cool. So let's say I'm in acceptance of that. Mm-hmm. And then they're not anymore. They're back to what they were born as. It seems complicated to me. Now, as a professional and me being in different settings with different people and a lot of meetings and different things with people, these are things I have to understand because people are easily offended today. So I had a conversation with my daughter. She is of this generation, her being 24. And it was a particular singer that both her and I liked. And I don't remember what it was or how the conversation came up. But she said, do you know that if you met him, you can't say he or him? No, nothing related to masculinity. I said, well, why I can't? She said, because he won't answer you. Well, for conversation's sake, she said he. I said, but why he won't? Because he doesn't answer to that. I said, but he's a male. So I'm going to say he or him or pronoun that he is a male. I know him to be a male. She said, but you can't say that. So it just kept going back and forth. So she said, I was being insensitive. But I was saying, okay, I'm a fan. I see him. And let's just say for conversation's sake, I went to his concert. I know my daughter likes him. And his manager's at the door where you get the autographs. Oh, I would like the an autograph from him. So the manager is not going to let me get the autograph because I addressed him incorrectly. I just paid money for the cut. You understand? It starts to get complicated. So let's say next week, press conference, or so in the news, Entertainment Tonight, he no longer is this. He's back to being a male. You can address him as him. It starts to get complicated. I mean, honestly, I really don't understand it. And then one of the biggest problems that we had is if you figure out, or this day you decide you want to be a different gender. So does that mean you could just go into bathrooms of the other gender? When this first started coming to light and they started discussing the bathrooms, that was disheartening to me because I have a daughter and she was extremely young at the time. I would hate to think some guy could just walk into the bathroom, a women's bathroom, just because he identifies as a woman now. I just don't understand, how can this be? There's not enough transgender bathrooms to go around. They haven't even started making all of them yet, but at this time, it was just a woman's bathroom and a men's bathroom. So I just decided, wow, tomorrow will be a woman. I could go into the women's bathroom. I had a huge problem with that, as I'm sure a lot of us would. I don't know. Today, I just don't get it. But at the same time, I just want everybody to be happy in their skin. But just respect my opinion as much as I expect yours. And let's come to some sort of median. You understand? It has to be some level of time where I could understand, or you could understand me some level of inappropriateness, not out of intent, but just because I don't understand. And like I said, this education that you gave me with all of these words in this language, this is new to me. I didn't know any of this. So to be honest with you, I still don't understand it. And I really became aware of it in regards to the bathrooms, because that really made me scratch my head like, wow, it's just that easy. So that's what I got to say in regards to that when I became aware of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And I think you expressed a lot of, what you expressed, I've heard many people say, and I've felt some of that too, of I'm confused and I have some questions and I don't know exactly how to ask the questions or how to have a conversation because it feels like there's not enough space to ask the questions without being judged, critiqued, or, those kinds of things. Yeah, or canceled. Yeah, Ja, what about you? What's your understanding of this language? When did you first become aware of it?
Little to none. Little to none.
Little to none.
Little to none. It's a lot to unpack. All the terminologies and all the labeling identification to address them as such. This is new information to me as well. I recently got educated about it at my former job because I was working in social services and in the with the intent to address people in a respectful manner, in a professional and respectful manner, and in lieu of how they identify themselves. I like you. I'm a Gen Xer myself, and as a Gen Xer, what I echo your sentiments. What we were mostly exposed to was homosexuality and cross-dressing. So that's something I can understand more of than this new thing of transgender. It is a lot to unpack. It is something to try to understand and learn more. Again, I'm not in a person's shoes whom he or she chooses to identify opposite of who they are, what they are. So I can't relate, so therefore I can't understand. But just because I can't relate or understand and I expose myself to being ignorant, it does not make me transphobic. And it does not deserve for me or anybody who don't understand or ignorant to be canceled. Because it's not, because we're not saying anything hateful, we're not saying anything derogatory. We're speaking from lack of knowledge and ignorance, and we're trying to understand what this is about.
Facts.
Again, we know what homosexuality is. We have people in our lives, friends, family, and the like, who are homosexuals, and that includes gay men and gay women, homosexuals, lesbians. We have them in our lives. We're friends with them. We love them dearly. I have close friends who are gay. I love them dearly. So that's understandable. I've been around gay people in my lifetime, so I understand what that's about, and I accept them for who they are and what it is, and I'll be totally open to accepting a transgender person for who that person is. Don't want to risk, label who that person is. But it's just a matter of being more educated and understanding what that life is about. I don't know how they feel. It would take me personally to sit down and have a conversation with someone of that ilk to really get to understand what it is that they feel inside, what's the experience that they go through, what's the emotional, spiritual, mental thing that they go through as a person that's in transition. Because I don't know, and I could never assess that. As a as a heterosexual male, I won't be able to relate. But Again, that does not make me transphobic. And to Mark's point, I don't appreciate the highly sensitive response and reactions when a person like me, who's uneducated and have some level and have ignorance to this matter, is speaking from that point, and a person like me would get attacked. And I'm not saying me per se, but there's people out there who expresses the same sentiment like Mark and I do, and they instantly get attacked, and they get canceled, so to speak, or labeled transphobic, and that's not the case. And so, and that's the one thing I don't appreciate. So that's my take on that.
Yeah, thank you. And I think what you're both highlighting is that this language is new to us. It's not as if the language and the experience has always been readily available and we've turned our heads to it and or we've demeaned it or ridiculed it. It has not been available to us. And I also want to highlight, because I think I might be the most advanced in this space as it relates to this conversation.
Definitely.
And I'm not very advanced, right?
You did your research.
You did your research.
I did do my research, and I have been definitely in some of my experiences have put me in very liberal spaces where I've had a crash course in some of these experiences and topics. So I literally, had some feet to the ground kind of learning.
Yep.
But transgender is about a gender identity. It's not about a sexual identity, right? So you can have a transgender male who is sexually attracted to males or who is sexually attracted to females. You can have a transgender female woman who's sexually attracted to women or is sexually attracted to men, or any other kind of combination, right? The gender identity is not a reflection of the sexual identity. It complicates it a little bit more as well, because I think from our generation and the generations that predated us, we already had a kind of expectation, a societal, cultural, direct correlation between gender and sexual identity. And so now we're being taught that, oh, no, you can pull these things apart and they can exist separately. And our minds are like, wait a second, let me catch up, because we didn't have all of this language. So this is where I may get a little bit controversial because the exposure that I've had to the queer community, to the trans community, is extremely limited. Let me be very, 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 very clear about that. And maybe in future episodes, we can have a representative of the trans community to come and speak for themselves. But I want to be really clear that one individual cannot speak for a whole community, right? Because we have communal experiences, but we have individual experiences within our group. So I am a Black woman and I can speak to some general experiences, but my experience doesn't translate to every Black woman.
Definitely.
Right? So here is where I find myself, here's where my frustration builds, right? The bathroom thing, it's a little bit confusing. It takes some adjustment. Okay, I can manage it, right? Pronouns, it can be confusing. It takes some adjustment. I get tripped up from time to time. I can mostly manage it. This is where I find my box to be. My box seems to be around the actual boxes, because my experience with the trans community, with the queer community, which the trans community falls under that umbrella, is that many members, many individuals in that community don't want to be boxed in, right? They don't want to be The definitions feel constricting.
Mm-hmm.
But fellas, I feel like this community has made so many boxes. I've never used language, I've never referred to myself as cisgender. I've never referred to myself as a cisgender female or AFAB. I've never had that language. And I don't know who created that language, but it feels like it is language that has come out of a queer experience. And there's something about it that now feels like, well, I want you to have your experience, and I want to find ways to be as respectful as possible for you to have your experience, because I do know not having your experience can be at the least uncomfortable and at the most deadly. And I don't ever want anybody to feel uncomfortable in their bodies. And if there's something that I'm doing that infringes upon your experience and your human rights, I don't want no parts of it. How can I not do it and maybe help other people not do it? Which hopefully maybe part of this conversation is helping all of us. But there's a way that I now feel boxed in. There's a way that I now feel critiqued. There's a way that I feel minimized and judged, and that my experience feels somehow I don't know, like my experience is almost part of the problem. And I say that because I know generally we stay away from trending topics and we don't really get much into what's, trending in the world. We might talk about a topic, but we're not doing it because it's trending.
Correct.
But within the recent days and weeks and things, there's been a conversation that I'm just going to paraphrase. And it seems, I don't know where the beginning of the conversation started. So please, co-hosts and listeners, forgive me. I don't know where the conversation started. But I know that there was a transgender individual who said something along the lines of cisgender females are not the holders or the keepers of like a period, of like menstruation. And I was just very confused because a transgender woman is having a very different experience than a cisgender woman is having. And as far as I know, maybe transgender women can have a biological period if they take hormones and surgery. And I don't know if that's possible, but I know I've been having my period since I was a teenager. And I know that my female experience, my gendered female experience, is something that has caused me joy, has caused me pain, comes with privilege, and comes with consequence. And it can't be, I don't understand how a transgender individual, particularly a transgender woman, gets to define me now. If I don't get to define you, how do you get to define me? And so I want to bring that into the space because I think, especially Mark, the bathroom thing kind of lends to this. But are there ways that you feel, from what you've learned or heard so far, that your own gendered experience, or your own gendered experience is being critiqued or judged or minimized, or you're somehow being boxed in? Ja, what do you think? Are you being boxed in at all? Are there any downsides for you to allowing a transgender individual to have their own experiences?
You said me or Ja? Oh, Ja,
Ja,
go ahead.
Ja.
No, because for the simple fact I'm not in that space, so I'm pretty much a person on the outside looking in and learning and observation, be it by social media, reading, observing, and the like. But my personal space, no, there's no boxing with me per se. But I also want to add, and I'm gonna get in trouble with you. That statement also is dismissive of the fact that you're a mother and you birth children. You forgot that part.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that is kind of out of pocket. That statement is kind of out of pocket. And the irony and the irony in that is it is a I see that as a bullying and oppressive statement towards you as a so-called cisgender woman or any cisgender woman, that to say that you're not the keepers of periods or whatever the statement was made. Yeah, that's not in their place that's not in their place to make that determination. I don't think. And so with that statement, how I translate that statement is that you're doing the very thing you don't want society to do to you, making a statement like that. You're doing the very thing, labeling us cisgender, AFAB, or the other identification that we didn't particularly agree to or didn't particularly acknowledge, because of the simple fact we're still learning as so-called heterosexual people. And I think that more should be concentrated on garnering your respect for your humanity, for your life, and for your rights, as opposed to turning around and doing the same thing that you don't want to be done to you, which is being labeled and boxed in. Why are you labeling us then? Who granted you the permission to identify as a cisgendered people? Who granted you that permission? Just like we have to get your permission and show respect to you and how to identify you. Who granted you permission to identify us? Right? Yeah, I'm going to get in trouble. There you go.
Welcome into the pool of trouble. But to me, it makes a good point. Like, does the group of people, do you get to define yourself? Right? And Black people, we've been a little bit of everything, right? We've been the word that we not supposed to say no more, right?
Yeah, we say it.
We've been Negro. I think we can say that in word. We can say that one.
Yeah, we've been Negro.
We've been colored. We've been African American. We've been Black. We've been Black American. But who gets to define you is, who gets to define your box, and what happens when someone outside of your box defines you. I think we're in trouble. Come on, Mark, come get in trouble with us. You're right. Do you feel like there's any rub to you?
And just from you saying it, it would appear as if, in this community, I understand they may feel like they're outsiders, so they have to create their own language. They have to create their own vocabulary. So everyone can understand everyone else within this community. I'll just use queer since you said that's the umbrella, without me getting into specifics with the pronouns. Okay, I get it. You have to have your own language that speak. So you created that. But it seems like the dictionary is getting too big. And everyone else outside of that, we got to learn that whole dictionary. Or if we don't, then that's where the problems come in to play at. Why do I need to learn that whole dictionary? I just want you to go on with your life, be fruitful, and live the American dream, as they say. You understand? Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. But you can't really do that. So what'll happen is, if you just keep expanding the vocabulary and order the language, right, then you always going to feel as if that you're being put down. People are discriminated against you, because as you create each and every word, it's going to always be someone that speaks out against it. Now, when we were young, going back to our generation, the only thing we had, or our parents would say, is that person is gay. That's it. We had homosexuals, we had lesbians, we had women that like women, and
we also had that person goes both ways.
Right.
Yes.
That's all that we had. It was, that's it. No other language involved, right? It's either this or either that, right? No one ever mentioned anyone being straight. And you don't really have that much today anyway. It's just something you have to know within. But you have to familiarize yourself with everything else. And then as you see other people doing that, even when you see people on their emails, it'll say they, them, hers, him, they, she, her, his. The first time I saw that, I had no idea what that meant. And I was just thinking, wow, why are they doing that? I didn't even understand when that became acceptable. Not that they need permission to do that. It's your email, but I didn't understand why that needed to come into play if we're in a professional setting and we're not discussing gender anyway. We're speaking about the topic at hand, whatever it is we have a meeting about, whatever it is I'm sending you an email about. Why would you need to know that? You understand? So people put it on the email, from what I understand, may not conform to any type of the language that we're speaking about here, but they put it on their email just to say, I get it, I'm inclusive of that. I don't know. I just didn't understand that and why people started to do it. Or is that something that we need to do? I haven't done that. My email just says my title and it says Mark Mills. I don't know if there's something that down the line come down be a mandate. This is not a mandate I would agree to, but it seemed like these things are being forced on you and you have to agree to it or else. Same thing, to dive off a little quick, no pun intended, sports, right? So again, that's a big controversy now, especially in regards to the Olympics.
Yes.
Right? So within the Olympics, you would have had to have the operation. I don't know how long before you try to qualify for the Olympics or do qualify to be able to compete in that sport upon which you were not born as. So the male that want to identify as a woman would have had to have the operation long before the Olympics to be able to compete in that sport. Now, for our purposes and our visuals and our eyes, glasses on or off, we still consider that person a male. He was born a male competing against women. So the women, they feel some kind of way about that because they're competing against a male. Now, let's just say swimming for 6, he's lapping them 2 or 3 or 4 times, back and forth, winning all kind of competitions. So now we got to get the Olympics involved. And this is going into other sports, college sports and things of that nature. And it's going back to the point of just saying, how is it that easy to do that? And then you could go back, and then you could go back again, and then back, you know? But that's good that you mentioned it doesn't have anything to do with sexual preference. It's relating to your gender and how you feel. But my question is, and again, like Josh said, this is just my ignorance. How many times can you feel you are a gender? You understand? And how will I know that? How can I keep up with that? And how do I know how to address you on the day when you are otherwise? When last week you were something different. It's a whole lot to take in. And at the same time, I mean, I have to give props to you for bringing this topic up. And we think of so many topics, this never came up, and it's a pressing topic, and it's beautiful we have the platform to speak on it and then learn from it. This is just an excellent topic, because regardless of whether or not we have an opinion on it or something we may speak on, or like you say, the silent generation be silent, this is something we all have to speak about. Whether or not we understand it, whether or not we have people in that community, we fully embrace them, whether or not we don't, whether or not we don't like it, whether or not we hate it. Everyone has an opinion on it, whether they say it or not. So, you know, kudos to you for bringing this up. But I don't know, it just leads to a lot of confusion for me. And I would definitely like to be informed about it, especially as it relates to sports and things of that nature. I don't know how you can just do that. And especially when you said I know I'm gonna quote you incorrectly, but I think you said a cisgender is a male, or could be a male or female that still likes the opposite sex.
No, well,
Did I get that wrong?
well, you can be transgender and still like either sex. Cisgender means the gender that you're living. So we're all cisgender, right? The genders that we are living are the genders that we were, is the sex that we were assigned at birth. So
Okay.
we can be cisgender and still gay or lesbian or homosexual, right? You can be cisgender and be heterosexual. You can be cisgender and be homosexual. You can be transgender and be heterosexual, or be transgender and be homosexual.
All right. So, in keeping with that space, with that same mindset ideology, so let's use Bruce Jenner. I know that's not his name now, but we knew Bruce Jenner to be an athlete, right? Got a lot of gold medals in the Olympics and everything like that. From our understanding and us watching Olympics when we were young, we would consider him a male, correct?
Yes.
So he's in a different place now in his life. Again, I don't know what to say he is, but he looks like a woman, if that's safe for me to say. To our eyes, he looks like a woman. But from my understanding, or me not understanding it, he still likes women. So he was a male that became a woman that still likes women as a woman.
Yes.
So why not just stay a man? This is just me thinking. This is just me scratching my head over it now. He could do whatever he wants in his life, but this comes back to us trying not to offend or trying to make sense of this. So if I see him, or her, this slip of the tongue may happen. You understand? And I may say, "Hey, Bruce," but he won't respond because he's not Bruce.
No.
You understand? But he's a woman that still likes women. So why not just stay a man? You understand? It's to me.
Well, let me.
Exactly.
There's so much. There's so much. There's so much. There's so much. And I'm gonna bring Ja back into it, of course, but that brings up another interesting conundrum for me. So Bruce Jenner, when the co-hosts here knew him as an athlete, Bruce Jenner, right? He is now Caitlyn Jenner.
Caitlyn,
So
okay.
he is she. So she is Caitlyn Jenner. If I'm referencing Caitlyn Jenner when we grew up with Caitlyn Jenner, when Caitlyn Jenner was Bruce, is it okay to reference Bruce Jenner because that's the body that he encompassed at that time? Those medals, the Olympics, that happened in a Bruce Jenner experience. Is it okay to then reference Bruce Jenner and as an indication that that's the time period I'm talking about, and now reference her, she, Caitlyn Jenner. But here is my other conundrum is with a gendered experience, right? So again, this is research, hearsay, listening to conversations, trying to educate myself, trying to not, infringe on a community and put people in a position that they have to educate me exclusively. I'm trying to do some of the work, right? Because Black people know what it feels like. We have some correlated experiences, not the same experiences, but we have some correlated experience of what it feels like to feel misunderstood, right? So from what I understand, and so we also have, let me also say, we have non-binary, right? Which in our language, in our generation, I don't even know if this is okay to say or if this is now a slur of some type, but in our generation, it was called androgyny. right? And one of the biggest examples, if y'all remember Pat from Saturday Night Live, do you guys remember Pat, the character? That was a very androgynous character. We could, the whole time Pat was on the show, we didn't know if Pat was a male or a female. It was a white character with short, dark hair, wore a button-up shirt, kind of a thick person, and all we knew was Pat, right? So Saturday Night Live addressed it, and then it was androgyny. I don't know if that's politically correct now, but now the term is more non-binary. I don't identify with male or female, or I identify equally with both.
Yeah, yeah, that term is non-binary, right?
Yeah,
that's the term today, non-binary.
I mean, I've heard that. I've heard it.
Yeah, non-binary. So, but for a transgendered person, a transgendered person is not non-binary. They are saying that they identify with a sex, but not the sex that they were assigned at birth, right? So in my body, I don't feel right. I don't, my parents are dressing me like a boy. There, the culture is telling me I have to wear blue and play with trucks, and I have to be rough and tumble, and the cultural gendered experience. Each culture has its own gendered experience. I'm talking about the American gendered experience, right? It's telling me that, and it doesn't feel right. I really want to play with dolls. I really want to comb hair. I really want to wear a dress. That's where I feel most myself. It's not that I want to play dress up. It's that I feel like myself when I'm wearing this. I don't feel right when I feel like an imposter when I'm asked to do what other boys are doing, right? So this is another point where I get confused, because that speaks to a biological, a neurological experience. But then what the transgender community does, in my opinion, as an outsider watching, witnessing, acts out the cultural expectations of the gender that they are wanting, that they identify with. So in the example of Bruce Jenner, it's not just that Bruce Jenner said, I'm not Bruce Jenner, I'm Caitlyn Jenner. Bruce Jenner said, I'm Caitlyn Jenner. I'm going to now dress as a female. I'm going to fulfill the cultural expectations visually of what a female would look like. And that also, I guess that also confuses me a little bit in a way that I can't even explain, because there is a piece of the transgender experience that feels like it denounces the cultural expectations connected to gender identity. Have you witnessed any of this, Ja? Am I talking a bunch of gibberish at this point? Help me.
It's a maze. It's definitely a maze. It's a lot. It's a lot to unpack. But I was following. I was listening intently, and I was following you. I was definitely following you, and I appreciate the education that you're providing for us in the capacity that you can provide for us. Because there's a lot more than I know for sure. The terminology, the contextualizing of it all. It's definitely something that you will not, I know for me, I will not get overnight. It's not something I'm going to understand overnight, but during time, I'm sure I have a brain, eventually I will, and I'll be able to comprehend and understand and respect a little more. But
you froze for a second, Ja.
Yeah.
I did. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
after
we didn't hear what you said after the
Which part? The whole thing?
Yeah, you said nah, we heard you said and then you came back. It was only for like a second or two.
It was a quick second.
Oh, okay. So again, to, I guess the part, what did I say? All right. Oh, so I can understand and perhaps respect a little more. That's how I ended it.
Yeah.
Mhm.
We need to wrap up today. So are those your final thoughts today, Ja? Is there anything else you want to get out in this space before we break?
Um, no, man. That's my take on it. Just this is all an aspect of living and learning. But um, my final thought is don't turn around. Don't oppress. Don't oppress another group that which you don't want to oppress you. Um, unless someone asks you for a label, don't give us any labels because I don't identify as cis. I'm a heterosexual black man, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Just Ja.
The end. Just Ja.
It's just Ja.
Yeah.
The end. It's just Ja.
Don't label me. Don't label me. Don't box me either. Simple as that.
Yeah. Yeah. Mark, C1, what about you? What are your final thoughts?
Again, thank you for this topic, D1, and letting us speak freely and all learning from each other. I've been educated this evening about a number of things that I definitely wasn't aware of. And this has definitely helped me going forward and just speaking about this topic or just learning anyone that may be, of that cloth in regards to what it is they may be going through. I definitely may not learn the language at all. Just the terms like binary or things of that nature, trans. I've heard cis before. AFAB and AMAP. I've never heard that. So all this is new to me. And I don't know when or where I will be to actually have to address someone at that or speak it up. So this is good now that we are talking about it, and anyone that may be in that community that may be watching this, one of our subscribers, just allow some time for people to understand that. And at the same time, with the identity, it could change from one day to the next and then back again. That's extremely confusing. But then at the same time, no one is saying you can't be who you are or want to be. You should have the freedom to express yourself however you want. But it has to be some sort of allowance for the person that you're facing to kind of say, I don't understand. And I think that's where the communication would be great at if you allow the person not to understand. Not saying they disagree, but just to say that they don't understand or do they have to understand. And then it leads to people being canceled and slurs being called and you being insensitive when that's definitely not the case. So again, at the end of the day, I guess I'm saying education is the key. So I'll end it on that note.
Yeah, thank you both. I thank you for both for your candor, for kind of jumping into the water with this conversation, which is so vast. And none of us have a bunch of knowledge about it, but we're trying. We're trying to navigate it. We're trying to learn. We're open to feedback. We're open to understanding more. We don't want to violate anyone's rights and we don't want ours violated either. So what does it
Thanks.
look like for us to manage the space? What does it look like? Um, thank you all. Not right, not wrong, making opinions cool again, having big people discussions.
Indeed.
Facts.
And shout out to 92.6 The Spot. Yes, tuning in 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. And that's all, folks. We'll be back though.
Stick
Season
a fork in
4.
season 3.
Yeah, man.
Season 4 coming next.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Peace.